Stephen LaTourette, Republican from Ohio, referring to the 40 or 50 or the 40 chuckleheads who he says are responsible for blowing up John Boehner's Plan B. Those aforementioned chuckleheads or defenders of liberty, depending on where you're sitting. For those folks, what are they going to do with John Boehner now, and what is John Boehner going to do with them? And fortunately, we have good people to answer them. You know and like Ford O'Connell. He is the chairman of the Civic Forum PAC. He was of the McCain campaign. He is a Republican, even though he wears a blue tie and socks today. No socks.
No socks.
Okay. No socks. Ford is in the house.
Got to be consistent.
Got to be consistent. Just stick with it. And Doug Thornell. He is a strategist, Democratic strategist at SKD Knickerbocker. Okay, gentlemen. So John Boehner, the press conference today, listening to, they were like, "You stink, John Boehner," and "You, this is ha 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 ha." There was a lot of that. And Boehner was obviously not happy. But here's a question. He could have forced this vote, couldn't he have? He could have ground this out, maybe. He could have gotten there. Ford, what do you say? Was he playing possum a little bit by yanking this thing?
I think he was, because I don't think he wanted to waste his political capital, because we're not done yet. I think that John Boehner is still... No, I mean, in terms of actually brokering a deal, I think by pulling it back, he saved a little bit of political capital. Now he wants to see what the Senate's going to do. But if that doesn't happen and nothing works out with the Senate, it still gives him some leverage with the White House, because clearly the president cannot afford a recession, neither can the American economy.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think these members are going to have to go home for 4 or 5 days, right? Kind of analyzing this vote. I think after TARP, it was a shorter turnaround, but there was a lot of criticism after that first vote on all sides. And this may apply pressure to not so much the Tea Party wing of the Republican conference, but maybe some of the moderates that are remaining there that, look, they've got to come to the table.
Well, one thing that I think might be interesting is for Boehner to be able to step back and say, okay, if I go to the White House, what does a sort of bipartisan bill really look like?
Dude, come on.
I'm just saying, it gives him that, behind closed doors, it gives him that opportunity.
But wait a minute, we have like no time left. You really think there's going to be a bipartisan legislation to avert Los Cliff?
I think I think that Boehner and Obama are a lot closer than people realize.
Well, they are close.
And
the question
the thing
is Boehner and Obama are close.
Right.
But it's the Republican conference that basically doesn't seem to be able to take yes for an answer on a lot of things, on spending cuts, on I thought that tax relief for 98% of Americans would be something that Republicans would support.
Let me say one thing why I think we're a lot closer than people realize. And
I agree with you.
And that is because Grover Norquist basically okayed Plan B for some people.
Right.
And that was
Which is a huge concession.
And I think what is going to happen is that I think Boehner wants to get a little bit more on the spending side. If he can get a little bit more on the spending side, he may be able to either pass a fully Republican bill or something that the majority of what we'll call the moderates on the Republican side can agree with the moderates on the Democratic side.
Yeah.
Because what people don't realize, on the spending side, there's some hardcore House Democrats that don't want to take any spending cuts.
Right.
So, I mean, it's like our guys on the
cuts.
tax side.
We've already voted for $1 trillion in spending cuts as part of the Budget Control Act. We've already done that. The president signed those into law. I think what's going to be interesting is whether John Boehner
doesn't fix our spending problem.
No, I don't. I agree, and that's why we're having this conversation. But I think what's going to be interesting is if John Boehner kind of moves away from this policy of the majority, which has kind of dominated Republican.
Now wait. That's the deal, though. That was what he predicated his speakership on.
Yes.
Was that he would honor that, and that he would be. That'd be bad faith.
It seems like there's
caucus.
pledges. They're pledging. There's so many pledges in the Republican conference. It's to Grover Norquist, to the majority.
But you guys have a pledge not to cut spending, period. We have our own issues, but don't make us think that this is just us on taxes. In a lot of ways, the Democrats do not want to fix Medicare and Social Security.
But hold on. You can say that, but just look at the last 3 years. The president has signed into law $1 trillion in cuts. We were attacked by Republicans on $716 billion in Medicare.
We're getting away from it.
But I do want to get back to my point about the majority of the majority.
Yes, I agree with you.
John Boehner, he is advantaged, disadvantaged, clearly disadvantaged that he couldn't get this through. He would have liked to have gotten it through. But he's going to be speaker.
Yes, he is.
Yes?
Yeah, I agree. And I think he has a pretty...
He's weakened by this vote. He's not damaged, and I expect him to get a deal.
Yeah.
That's the bottom line.
Really? All right. Before the 31st. Oh, come on, dude.
I hope before the 31st. I really do. I really
You think so?
But I know that we're going to have it for sure by January 15th.
Yeah, I know we'll have it by January 15th. What I'm saying is that for these Republicans, here's what I'm trying to wrap my tiny hillbilly brain around, and it's this.
Well, it's not so tiny.
Well, it's a big head, but there's a lot of room in there. I've got like a love seat and a settee up there. The question is this. How could the Republicans be advantaged on the other side of the fiscal cliff? The president he's starting from a new baseline of higher
That's why
taxes.
game theory is a lost art in the Republican Party, particularly among conservatives. In all honesty, part of this really is we knew that Plan B was not going to go through in the Senate.
Right.
But it was a lob to go to the Senate to basically get us between...
You're at $1 million, we go...
Exactly.
Right.
750, 500 is really...
Right.
We want to get them off the 4, and we want to get a better deal on the entitlements.
So you say deal?
I'm not convinced. I mean, I was a lot more optimistic, 3 weeks ago, and I was optimistic 4 days ago, and I thought this whole Plan B
once Norquist said not preventing an automatic tax increase is not the same as voting to increase taxes.
Well, and I think part of it is that Boehner is going to have to talk to the Club for Growth and Heritage Action. I really think that those are two groups.
A lot of people have been trying that old, I'm going to talk to the Club for Growth
I'm
for
just
a while.
saying, but again,
and that's really the biggest problem, right? Republicans have is they're staring at the next 6 months of potential primary polls.
No, but it's not just that. What we're also concerned about is the fact that if we do go over the cliff and we do get blamed, you're basically going to paper cut us to death over the next 18 months.
Do you know who's smart? The people who watch the show. Here's what Big Vinny 323 says. Who's to say a bad vote is better than no vote? Not Congress. So far, the one thing everybody still can do is point fingers and blame the other guy for everything.
Very
That's what
true.
they do. That's their jam. That's how they roll. That's the idea. And right now, we have a terrible moment where there is an expectation of recession. There's an expectation of economic downturn. And there are a lot of people who would like to say, don't blame. It's like a bumper sticker. Like, don't blame me. I voted against Plan B. Or
and that was the surprising thing I thought about John Boehner's statement last night, which was basically like, "Hey, I'm washing my hands of this, and now it's up to the president, Harry Reid."
I'm going to say one thing about John Boehner, and that is I'm going to get a lot of guff from this from conservatives, but I think that the Republican Party is in good position and very lucky that John Boehner is Speaker of the House right now, just because I do believe that he will look at all options and pick the best one available given the situation.
All right, there you go. The Buckley rule as applied to legislation. Okay, Doug Thornell and Ford O'Connell. We could talk about a lot of things as it relates to John Kerry and all of that stuff. We could talk about Benghazi. We could talk about Hillary Clinton. We could talk about blah-da-da-da-da. But you know what I want to talk about here? Cynical politics. That's accurate. I want to talk about Massachusetts Senate race first, because if you pull John Kerry out of the Senate in Massachusetts, Scott Brown, who just lost by Republican standards in Massachusetts, he made a good showing as a Republican in Massachusetts in a special election, which is what he got in on the first time. What happens in the Massachusetts? Let's start with the cynical politics. Ford, what happens in the Massachusetts Senate election?
Well, I think that, first of all, Deval Patrick actually has to appoint someone.
He's the governor.
He is the governor of Massachusetts. He has to appoint someone. His top choices are Markey and Capuano. But again, after that, we're going to have a special election, 145 to 160 days. And it looks like if we are running the only game in town, Scott Brown, according to the polls, will be right back in the United States
Senate. In the mix. Well, at least in the mix, because obviously, and this is, we should point out, Republicans, generally speaking, like special elections in states that are Democratic.
Because we do very well, because when we can focus on one thing versus 25 balls in the air, it's amazing how much better we do.
Dropped all of them balls.
Yeah, except that, when Scott Brown won, he was running against a deeply flawed candidate. And,
have you seen the group, the motley crew that is up according to the Democratic Party of Massachusetts? I worked for the Massachusetts State Senate.
Who was it? Martha Coakley? I mean, No,
I'm talking about this time around.
But I'm saying last time.
Ed Markey seems to be the guy.
No, I know, but last time around,
okay.
in terms of the flawed candidate. And then I think healthcare was at the forefront of the news, and it was deeply unpopular at the time. So look, I think that it would probably be a toss-up. I mean, and which is probably good news for Republicans. I mean, in a Massachusetts state.
I actually think that Scott Brown has the edge, and we're starting to see him game theory this out with his statement currently about the NRA and assault weapons. He is trying to be a Republican who represents Massachusetts, and frankly, he's got the infrastructure in place. He's got the right people, and really, Markey and Capuano.
Are you accusing that senator of not having an honest change of heart? You think there was
no? I am saying that he is thinking thinking about his political future.
It's still
because
a
if
deeply
he does,
blue state, though.
you're telling. Trust. I worked in Massachusetts State Senate. It's beyond deeply blue.
Right.
Okay?
Republican
hitting
Texan
one line
in the
in
Massachusetts
exactly.
State Senate.
That's like a line in winter. It shouldn't happen.
Right.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Now, to the other part. Is Kerry going to have any trouble getting confirmed? No.
The only way is if he swift boats his own confirmation.
He run ads against himself.
Hey,
but you
wouldn't
guys agree-
surprise me.
You guys, no problems.
I
there?
think he'll be
No
I think he'll
problems.
be fine.
Hagel at defense.
Merry Christmas, guys.
Merry Christmas.
It's been a fun 2012 with you.
Yeah.
It's been, and we look forward to having you back. I was hoping for more vitriol here, but you were in the holiday spirit and very well behaved because I
We
guess
could talk about
Well, Doug's a smart
Redskins,
Democrat.
Cowboys.
you know that if the world ends, you don't want it to go out on that note. But we thank you.
I'm just
very
glad we're here.
That's
You know,
right.
I mean,
we made it.
the
So far.
alternative would have been a lot
It's
worse.
not noon yet.